I want to say a big welcome to Roy for joining us today. And by the way, if you are having technical difficulties, if you're having trouble hearing us, number one, you can turn on captions. It should be in the bottom of your screen. Number two, please feel free to use the chat and Q&A functionality. If you do have questions that come up throughout the event, we will take questions at the end. So I'll be saving them up and we'll address them a little bit later. But other than that, I would love to go ahead and get started. Roy, hopefully you can hear me and are live.
Hi, Sadie. I'm here. Yeah. Trying to turn my video on, but once it's ready to go, we'll be.
We have video. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Mine's not working. So hopefully yours will pop up as well. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get rolling. Welcome to your LinkedIn Outreach Sucks, and here's how you can fix it. There has been a ton of interest in this particular topic, so I kind of love that we decided to do this one. Also, by the way, in all of our run-throughs, different things came out. There's a ton of content we could do on this, so we're going to try and keep it short and sweet today. But do know that there's a ton more we could talk about and share on this particular topic. Let's see here. All right, so I'm Sadie. I'll be kind of your moderator for the day, I suppose, but the real star of the show here is Roy, who's joining us. He is, among other things, a seller who uses LinkedIn really, really heavily, and he's got some really great LinkedIn strategies to share with us. So thank you for hopping on, Roy. I appreciate your being willing to share.
No problem. I'm just trying to get my video up. So once that goes up, it will start streaming, I promise. But yeah, super happy to be here.
Still not quite there. All right, no worries.
No, we're not there. Maybe we broke the internet with everyone attending here. But yeah, super happy to be here and go through kind of my processes from like real world in the trenches feel, rather than just say like, hey, these are best practices and I promise this will work. So just excited to keep sharing that as we progress with the webinar.
Fantastic. So some of the questions we're going to answer today. Is LinkedIn really that important? Does this stuff actually work? How much does your profile really matter? And then what about posting? Like, should I be posting? Should I not be posting? Does it actually change my my results, my engagement? And then what outreach strategies work best, which probably, of course, again, is one of the things that people have most wanted to see, especially from Roy, of the things that are working. But by the way, I'm privileged enough actually to talk to customers and prospects all the time that are doing all kinds of interesting things on LinkedIn. So in addition to Roy's perspective, we'll also share some other things that are working for other customers that really are helping people knock it out of the park in terms of LinkedIn. Oh, the one thing I did want to mention too, I'm going to say leads, and I understand that there are people on the phone who might use LinkedIn for finding job candidates, finding job openings if they're looking for a role. You might be looking for leads, you might be looking for partners. I'm going to say leads, and I mean whatever it is that you're looking for, right? Whatever connections you're looking for on LinkedIn, we'll just use the word leads so that it's sort of consolidated. But I do know that not everybody's sales or marketing, so not everybody's looking for direct sales leads. All right, so one of the things I want to go ahead and do, and again, bear with me, this is not a platform I'm terribly familiar with, is I'm going to open up a couple of polls here, and I want to ask just some questions about how you're using LinkedIn today. It helps us kind of understand what is, what the audience looks like today. So how frequently do you use LinkedIn for professional networking and outreach currently? I'd love to hope that walking away today, your answer will be, we're going to use it more now. But I would love to kind of understand how our audience is laid out today. All right, so we got about half the people who use it all the time, and about half who maybe use it a little bit more occasionally. And then a couple of percent, which is great, of just, I don't do much with it at all and I'm just getting started. Awesome. Those of you who answered constantly, I live on LinkedIn, by the way, fantastic. If you have other tips to share, please feel free to pop them in the chat. We tried to appeal to kind of everyone on this webinar, so it'll be a little bit mixed of sort of more intro level strategies and then more advanced strategies that hopefully will help you as well. Just give it just another second or two. And I've got one more question for you as soon as that one's wrapped up. Thank you everyone for participating. By the way, a ton of people are answering the poll, so I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go close that one out and I'm going to open our next poll and ask one more question before we get started. And hopefully. All right, how confident are you in your ability to generate leads or connections on LinkedIn? We'd really like to understand, I feel like, oh, I've already got this. By the way, if you completely feel like you've already got this, you may or may not be on this webinar, right? Even if you're really confident that LinkedIn's working for you today, in fact, maybe especially if you're pretty confident that LinkedIn's working for you today, I'm hoping we're going to give you some tips that'll make it even more powerful. All right, so most people are saying somewhat confident. We got about 58% of people saying they're somewhat confident. They're getting some results. And I actually love that answer, because if you're already getting some results, it means the people that you're targeting are there, right? And there's more for us to work with. So I kind of love that. 20% are saying not confident, still figuring things out. 23% are very confident, and 4%, we've got a few people who are expert and can teach others how to do it, which I love. And thank you for hopping on as well. All right, I'll give it just another moment before we close that one, but about 80% of you have answered, so thank you for being engaged and cooperating here. Cool. That's somewhat confident. I love that, because I really think that those are the people that we might help the most. Roy, I see you are still not being successful with the video, huh? All right.
I think you have to enable it, Sadie. Go to my and say it's enabled by host.
Let me see if I am able to do that.
Yeah, technical difficulties are the bane of our existence with technology.
There's not an option for me to do that. I apologize. I wish there was. There is not. Jen, maybe you can keep working on that while we move on with the webinar. All right. Yeah, I can do some other things, but unfortunately not that. All right. So let's get rolling. We'll go ahead and close out the poll and get moving on today's slides. So first part, LinkedIn, and there are some different numbers available based on what exact state you are. I think this data is from April of 2024, but 214 and up million users in the United States alone, right? Let alone all of the other countries in the world. And their spread is pretty darn broad, right? Another statistic I saw was 77% of the population, the working adult population, basically those over 18, right? And in the workforce. Either way, it's massive. I mean, a lot of us, it's funny because I have clients that come and ask me like, oh, should we be on TikTok or Instagram? And I'm like, let's talk about LinkedIn. It's really, you know, if you are looking for business people, professionals, even if you're, especially if you're in the B2B space, but even if you're in the B2C space and you're targeting, you know, a crowd with more professional bent, higher education, higher income levels, they're on LinkedIn, right? And they're on LinkedIn pretty actively. So if it's not something that you're spending a ton of focus on, I would encourage you to maybe ramp that up just a little bit. And then I also wanted to include, we did a survey lately of, you know, how people are seeing LinkedIn, what the trends are, what's working, what's not working. And I wanted to share, because we had a million different quotes that people shared about how it's working for them. You know, I got 500 new connections in 3 months. I've added 7 figures into my business. I get 60% reply rates. Those are numbers that we don't see anywhere else, right? And especially because in other areas, you can't reach people on their cell phones. They're probably not answering their screening calls, right? They're not in the office necessarily anymore. Email open rates are lower than they used to be, and response rates are lower than they used to be, right? And so LinkedIn becomes even more powerful. Roy, maybe you can chime in there on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that there's also like a compound effect to it. So like usually people will read something, some like, you know, astronomical claim and be like, there's no way I'm going to add 7 figures to my pipe in X amount of time, because that's just a one-off and that's not me. But there's a compound effect when it comes to utilizing LinkedIn, where like, you know, there's certain people out there with hundreds and thousands of followers, and it didn't happen overnight. So with WeConnect, I just look at it as like, you're not taking the human part out of LinkedIn, you're just scaling the relationship part. So being able to, like, whether you're looking for a job or you're trying to, you know, sell into your ICP, or you're trying to recruit folks, no matter what your vertical is and your goal of your job or like your intention on LinkedIn, WeConnect just helps support that, where you're doing a more of a precise approach rather than just like, I'm really not sure what to do here. So hopefully that's what we can build and, you know, educate folks on here today so that they can utilize it to the best of, like, you know, what their end game goal is.
Awesome. Well, and you shared some pretty powerful numbers with me, I think, before as well.
Yeah. So for me, I'm team no note hashtag, that when I connect with people, I won't send it in a note, just send, you know, I'm just generally connecting with you. This is a networking platform. I just leave it blank. You feel free to creep on my profile, whatever that looks like, to see if you want to connect with me or not. But primarily what I do my intentional outreach for is folks that I interact with their content. Maybe that'll be about 10% of my intentional connections. But to be honest, 90% of my connections will be my ICP and who I sell into. So primarily focused on building my pipeline, building relationships, asking questions, and just starting those conversations. LinkedIn brings another vibe of you're bringing yourself to the platform. It differs from a cold call or a cold email because you're bringing your photo, your work history, your whole bit, and then you're able to, and there's my video, yay. Anyways, the anticipation is over and I'm sorry you're disappointed. But anyways, getting into that, it's just being able to send a connection request and just generally start a relationship would be the goal. And I'll say from my standpoint, I used to spend hours and hours and hours a week, and this is not an infomercial vibes, following up on messages. Like people respond and it gets lost in the garbage can of, focused inbox or spam inbox or whatever. This just helped me really streamline my approach. And with my numbers, like I'm seeing about a 60% connection rate. And then of those connections, I'm seeing about a 40 to 50% reply rate, utilizing WeConnect and streamlining my approach of creating relationships and asking questions to start those conversations. So I was a little long-winded, but I'm trying to buckle this all up into not taking 2 hours because I will talk for that long.
Yep. No, and in fact, when we surveyed some power users on LinkedIn, 60% of them said it has become somewhat or significantly more effective in the last year, by the way, and 62% think it will be even more effective in the next year, right? So I don't think that we're at a place where it's like, oh yeah, LinkedIn was working, but maybe it's not as much. Obviously, the approach has changed all the time in terms of what works the best, but I definitely think there's still a ton of opportunity there. All right, I'll speak to this one just a little bit, and then I'll ask you to share as well, Roy. What you get out of it is equal to what you put into it, right? I will say, like, I got a notice from LinkedIn that I was a 20-year veteran of LinkedIn, which is crazy because God only knows what I was doing with it in 2004. But I will say I've never really invested, actually. I use it, if I'm hunting for a job or connecting with colleagues. I used it pretty casually, actually, until relatively recently. And, it's a shame, actually, because I think I should have been paying more attention. No jargon. This is something that I believe wholeheartedly in marketing and in life. Speak in your own voice, right? Don't, and you'll see a little bit later some of our poll questions. People really don't want to hear about like the company updates and the formal stuff. They want to be a little bit more authentic. I think that's something that's happened since kind of pandemic and other things. By the way, keep it professional, right? It's always it is a professional platform, so there's a limit, but definitely being more authentic with your sharing, being more open, and then just experiment all the time are some of the tips that we would like to start out with, and we'll get a little deeper, obviously. Roy, go ahead.
Yeah, the advice that I would give for rules of engagement to LinkedIn is like, don't let an influencer or anybody tell you what you need to be doing. Like you find your own vibe and find your own lane. I mean, LinkedIn's a freeway of 500,000 different lanes, right? So find what works for you. Like my methodology may be laughed at people. Like I post memes and GIFs every day and I get dozens upon dozens. Sometimes it ranges from 20 to 60 followers per day from writing stuff that's essentially people would look at as dumb. But what I'm trying to create is a culture of, yes, I'm a business professional. Yes, I know what I'm doing and I'm good at my job. But like, this is who I am authentically. Like if I jump on a Zoom call with you as a prospect, or you just want to pick my brain, or you want to hire me, like this is who I am as a person that I'm putting out there as my vibe, right? So then I use my intentional connection request per week to build my ICP list, to build my pipeline for my business and build my book of business. So I love to marry the two because I get people I really enjoy engaging with following me, and then I'll follow them back as I see their stuff. And then I'm actually building a really large, prospect list at the same time. So it's the best of both worlds. It becomes fun for me, but also really helps me at my job at the same time. And I'm like you, Sadie, like I dove in. I didn't really utilize LinkedIn for a long time as a business owner. And then when I pivoted into HRTA tech, I really went all in, canceled my Instagram, Facebook, everything. I just went all what I spend on socials, put it into LinkedIn. And I mean, it has a 10x return and I'm just getting started.
Awesome. By the way, thank you, those of you who are submitting questions already. I did forget to mention, yes, we are recording, so we will be sending it around, and we will also send you a copy of the slide deck as well within 24 hours after the event. So thank you for asking and reminding me that I hadn't answered that one yet. I think part of it, well, Roy and I both mentioned, but consistency, right? But also I want to dig a little bit deeper into the know your target audience piece. In fact, I thought it was important enough to put its own slide. Roy, you had a pretty interesting approach actually to kind of how you figure out who you should be targeting.
Was that City? Kind of cut out there for me.
Sorry about that. You had an interesting approach as to who you should be targeting, looking at some of your past deals, I think.
Yeah. So like if you're, I mean, this is primarily for salespeople, but like what I do once I enter an organization, or maybe you've been there for a while, like go into your close one list and just see who are your buyers, who are your champions, who are your stakeholders, and who are your economic buyers, and build out lists. I mean, essentially what I'll do is, even when I enter this organization I'm currently at, Aaron, where we automate employee referral programs, directors of TA and heads of talent and VPs of talent are who are my core buyers and my core champions. I will go into close one. You could even go into close loss and see the people to avoid, essentially, that won't champion your product, and find out the similarities in who is tracking on, like, who is your main title that your messaging resonates with, and then go after and build out those lists, right? You can regionalize it. You know, most of you probably live on SalesNav like me, and LinkedIn, and can filter everything at this point, and really optimize LinkedIn as a channel to say, this is my ICP, this is what resonates with them, and this is why other folks have bought what I'm selling. And again, this is the sales lane, and really just focus on that, and then set it and forget it, like 90s infomercial style, right? Like that's kind of my style. And then I can focus on intentionally engaging with other people's content, liking, commenting, sharing, whatever it is, and working on my brand at the same time of building, you know, connections that I can, and I'm not pitch slapping these people. I'm just creating conversations with them as they connect. I'm using LinkedIn and WeConnect as a filtration system of, I connect with 150 people, 75 accept. I message 75 people, curious questions about, you know, their earnings calls, their 10Ks, their plans for the year, what they have, you know, what their outlook on talent is. And then maybe I get 30 conversations. And if you compound that over 50 weeks a year, you know, let's say you take 2 weeks of PTO, which salespeople never really turn off. That's a lot of conversations over a year's time. So that's the way I look at it, as like a long game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the things we had chatted about earlier was knowing that you might have multiple targets. And by the way, it does bleed into the next section, which is how much does your profile matter? In everything you do on LinkedIn, I want you to have a really clear image of who your target audience is, right? And I tell clients this, and it's easy, I know that, but even like maybe go find a, you know, example photo of your, if your target is, you know, 35 to 45-year-old females, maybe go find a photo of, you know, Rachel, who's a mom, who's active, who's whatever, right? And put it up on the wall, because everything that you do, every piece of content should be designed to appeal to that person. Or maybe you have multiple targets, right? Especially on LinkedIn, a lot of us, I think, can have multiple targets. You might have, you know, professional connections, other people who are similar to you, as well as a persona that you're selling to, right? And you want to be really clear about those two, and make sure that each of your pieces of content, each part of your profile is appealing to one or the other, or ideally both, if you have 2 or 3 different targets, right? So I think it's a really good one. All right, how much does your profile matter? The other thing is that we did some tests recently, and with some LinkedIn profiles, and it turns out it matters a ton, all right? And we were working with a customer who didn't get good results. We looked at it and went, well, wait, your profile really, you know, it has like what college you went to and one job that you had 10 years ago kind of situation. It matters a whole bunch. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. I want to touch really quickly. Part of the kind of inspiration for the title of this webinar, by the way, is the number of horrible AI generated or just not appropriate for work kind of images that we see on profiles, right? Your profile should say, this is who I am. This is how I help the world. This is how I, you know, this is the main thing I want to connect around, whatever that might be. But also, like, I'm here and I'm showing up in a way that is professional and appropriate. It's okay to be fun, but, you know, it may not be the time to show all kinds of crazy personality stuff, right? Because it is sort of your online resume. And so wanted to touch on that really, really quickly. And let me pop us into the next slide. All right. Then also social proof. And by the way, Roy, I know I want to have you chat here for a minute, but social proof, do you have recommendations? on your LinkedIn profile? And by the way, does that matter when people are connecting with you? Absolutely. Is it the one thing they look at? No, of course not. But do you look authentic? Do you look like you're engaged and part of a community? Does it look like other people trust and respect you in your field, right? All of those things really, really do matter. When we're talking about 40 or 50% response rates, the people who don't have all this stuff, they're not getting those kind of rates, right? And so do you have skills that you're endorsed, social proof, get some reviews going? Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I look at it like this, and this is real world example. Like years ago in a past life, I ran a gym business for 14 years, and then COVID came and wiped it out, and I had to pivot into TA tech. And it was very difficult because that was a choice that I chose for the vertical, because I have a big presence. I had a little bit of a following from the fitness industry, whatever it was. And then now that I built out, like, if me and you work together, Sadie, and you move on to a new op, or I do, I follow up with the folks that I had good relationships and say, hey, Sadie, I'd love if you give me a recommendation. I'm happy to do the same. That correlates to like interviewing with other organizations. No one asks me for references anymore, because you can go online and see 18 of other people. And it's not just a name on the wall with a phone number and an email. It's actually someone they can click into, who they were, what they did with Roy, how they interacted, how long they worked with them. And that shows the social proof. On top of like skills, that's debatable. I find with skills where like adding what your skills are, anybody can say, I'm skilled at X, but there's no way to like prove the proficiency. So like, I just look at it as like algorithmically, it's easier for you to find a job based on LinkedIn's matching profile if you fill out skills. So I do recommend it, but it really only like is worth the squeeze if you're looking for a current job. But the social proof has a lot to do, like you said, Sadie, like you don't want to come out of the gate with some crazy memes and gifs and stuff like kind of I do, and then kind of you could turn people off. But the way I look at it is I've had enough experience in my life where like I know who I am, and that type of Roy fit peg I want to fit into an organization. So I want them to know the whole me, so I know that I will align with whoever comes out, wants to hire me, looks at my profile, do they want to buy from me, the whole bit. So like there is a methodology to that, where like once you get started, try things out, see what resonates with folks. But once you've built your brand and you've found a lane, just like, you know, upshift until you're at 7,000 RPMs and go. That would be my suggestion.
Sorry about that. I hit my mouse and it took us back a couple of steps. Yep, absolutely. By the way, there are actually some tools that even if you use LinkedIn with some regularity, you might not know about. One of them is the Social Selling Index, and you can reach it even if you don't use Sales Navigator, with the link in the bottom corner here. This happens to be my social selling index. Apparently I'm okay. Probably some of you have a much higher social selling index. I know, Roy, yours is in the 60s, but it ranks you on different components of your score, how well you're doing in terms of networking. And is it the be all and end all? Of course not, no, right? But it gives you an idea of how your profile and how your outreach might compare to others in your industry. There's also a profile status that will show if you look on View My Profile under LinkedIn. It kind of tells you like, have you filled out, you know, all those different 7 sections, right? Is there everything? Is there more that you could add to your profile to really beef it up a little bit? All right.
What's that say?
No, I think we're actually going to open up just a couple of more polls. And by the way, I'm rushing through some of this only because we're getting so many good questions. So thank you, everybody, for responding and submitting your questions, because I think there's a ton of good stuff for Roy to chat about when we get to the end. All right. So how do you use LinkedIn currently? Let's ask a little bit more detail here than we did before. And I am going to go. All right. Just a question about how you use LinkedIn in terms of like, is it generating leads? Is it connecting with partners, seeking sponsors? Maybe if you're in the nonprofit space. I appreciate, again, everybody kind of participating on that front. You know, while we have this one open, Roy, and I think I'm not going to open the other one because we've had so many questions come in already, but one of the things you and I were talking about is you have the kind of standard scenarios, right? People who maybe go on LinkedIn all the time just to find a job, or people who go on LinkedIn regularly to sell. By the way, there are clearly plenty of them, because like right now I've got a sales guy that I cannot seem to get to stop messaging me 6 times a day. But outside of those kind of common scenarios, I think you had a couple of examples of people that you were chatting with recently that you recommended they use LinkedIn to start to build a network, even if they weren't in one of those scenarios.
Yeah, so like I actually gotten to the point where like I think LinkedIn has diversified its platform like so extensively that you can't really argue to me why it's not relevant, right? Like, sure, if you're a warehouse worker and you pack boxes, um, why would I use LinkedIn? And my question to you would be like, is that what you want to do forever? What do you want to break into? Because you have to start utilizing a network to move out of that space. Not that that's a bad job. Maybe that's what you love, is making boxes. Like, good for you, right? But like at the end of the day, you need to be able to find how you can leverage it. So we were talking, say, the other day about like, I'm an engineer. Why would I want to build a network? It's like, well, because you're an introvert. Essentially, majority of the time, 90% call that engineers are introverts. So like, you're not going to go out and intentionally build relationships and community, maybe have social anxiety, whatever it is, but like we connect and streamline that on top of LinkedIn, that like you can start building a network of your peers or other leaders, or maybe you want to go work at Microsoft. Like you can build out a whole list of folks that you would connect or work or align or work under at Microsoft, build out that list and start creating that network of, hey, I'm connected with 500 people at Microsoft. It's a pretty good leg up if you wanted to work there, right? So it really aligns for me like sales, marketing, recruiters, or finding a job. Those are like the four big lanes on the freeway. But like, no matter what you're doing, LinkedIn can be a tool to help either promote your voice for change, or build a network of peers, or work into a company that maybe you eventually want to work for. But I mean, sky's the limit. It just depends on the certain use case that we're be kind of essentially talking about.
Absolutely. And I do want to share really quickly the results of the poll. So 90% of people use it for generating leads or clients, but also, you know, a lot of just kind of networking and growing my network, lots of partnerships, lots of other uses. So I guess, you know, part of why we wanted to do the webinar was just to say, like, you should be paying more attention and you should be taking it a little bit more seriously probably than you were. By the way, that's my message to myself as well. But part of the reason that we partnered with Mobile Growth Association on this one is that Jen had the same reaction that I did when I came across like LinkedIn automation and realized how powerful some of this stuff could be. Was I really wish I'd known about this like 10, 15 years ago in my, you know, sort of technology career, my technology journey, just because there are so many opportunities for LinkedIn. So I will stop sharing the results. Oh, research. I think, by the way, researching companies and industries, yes, LinkedIn has data that nobody else has, right? In terms of where somebody is, that no other email tool could ever give you. So, all right. Did that one. LinkedIn engagement. Do you want to talk a little bit, Roy, about posting and engagement on LinkedIn in addition to outreach? I think that especially if we've got, you know, 90% of people using for leads and clients, I think there's an instinct to go straight to like outreach and how many connections do I have, but I think that engagement side is really important as well.
Well, I think like a lot of the people could say like, oh, building a list and just connecting blindly with folks is not the way. But then the sales way is filled with like cold emails and cold calls that are like way more brutal. Like I get like probably 10 rings a day, and I'm just an enterprise rep. I'm not a leader. I'm not a buyer. If anyone's listening out there, I don't have a checkbook to give you a check, so just don't bother. But the point I'm trying to make is that utilizing engagement for me is more become a strategy where like I find it just kind of like serendipitous in the sense like I'll connect with, let's say, a sales leader at another organization because I like their content. I engage, and then a month or so goes by and they're like, hey, are you looking for a job? I didn't even say that I was looking for a job, but they're seeing, hey, he's active, he's engaging, he's being intentional, you know, like same with my ICP, my ideal client profile, for people who are asking what that acronym is like, I will, if I have a large account that I'm trying to work into, I will connect folks, engage with their content, comment, and ask nothing. And then eventually, once I've invested the time and poured into them, when I simply have a question to ask or prompt a conversation, they'll usually return the favor. So use your likes to look at people's profile, who's engaging with your content and why would they be engaging in it? Whether it's, you know, you want to create them in your network, or, you know, connect for a coffee, or you're going to sell to them. Also, profile visits is huge. Like I get probably 1,000 profile views a month, and I go through there and I'll say, hey, Sadie, thanks for stopping by my profile. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Whether it's like, you know, you're just being like servant leadership style, or you're engaging with a, you know, prospective buyer essentially. So engagement is huge, but take that data and all those metrics that are coming in from engagement, likes, comments, shares, whatever, and start digging into that and seeing like, why are they engaging and how can I support them? Or sell to them or recruit them or hire them, or however your angle is with your job, with how you correlate the two.
Absolutely. And by the way, we actually got some statistics from the survey. 38% of people who post weekly or more often report that LinkedIn is their most valuable source of lead. This one actually really surprised me. I'm not going to lie. As a marketer, right, I've used a million different sources of leads. And for that many people to say, hey, this is the most valuable thing we do, just knocked me out of my chair. 82% of people who post at least occasionally say it's among their top 3 sources. And no surprises, although it always is nice when the data works out the way you would think it would, who almost never or never post, nobody said it was their most valuable source of leads, right? And so I do think there's a connection there. It's about really authentically engaging with a community, just like any other networking, right? Like if you used to do Toastmasters events or any other sort of, right? Like think of that as the virtual version. The more authentically you can be there, show up, help, etc., the more it'll resonate and it'll, get reactions to your profile. We have so many crazy questions that I go through really quickly though, Roy. I think people will be really excited about this. If you're like already, okay, I've got my profile done, I get it, I've filled out my thing, like I'm being authentic, I'm sharing, I'm blah, blah, blah. How are you actually sending people, like what's your style?
Yeah, so my style would be like my real world like use case in the trenches for me. Like you can put it into your context, like enter value prop, enter solution, whatever. But like hypothetically, it would be like I connect with Sadie, and she's my buyer. She's a VP of TA at, I don't know, we connect. Let's just, that's easy, right? I will connect with you. You accept. I say, hey, Sadie, thanks for connecting. Visit your profile, look at it a little bit, see if anything stands out. Like that's the part that kind of blows my mind, where you'll get on a call and people be like, where you're from, how you doing, where'd you go to college, all this, like it's there. You can utilize that as a prompt for conversation. Say, hey, I saw you went to, UC Berkeley. Like, what was that like? I live in the Bay Area, whatever. There's ways to build that rapport instantly by just finding stuff on LinkedIn. But that's another whole webinar. But the point I'm trying to make is that Sadie connects. I say, thanks for connecting. The next day, simply, I'm like, hey, Sadie, I'm curious who runs your employee referral program at WeConnect, because I sell employee referral automation software. Now, I'm not asking for her checkbook. I'm not asking for a meeting. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just curious. So she thinks either, hey, he wants to refer someone, he wants to be referred, or maybe he's trying to sell me something, but whatever, and say, yeah, that's me. I run talent. And I would say like, oh, awesome. Like, I'm just wondering if you can help me with something. Other leaders I talk to on a daily basis find X problem to be their daily issue, and then another X problem to be your weekly issue. Like, does that track for you? Oh, it totally tracks for me. Wow, that's crazy how this is like every single leader like you. Why do you think that is? And we start a banter a little bit. And then the beauty part about that is then it organically leads into, hey, Sadie, we've been going back and forth for 10 minutes. Like there's obviously a lot to chat about. I'm wondering if you'd be open to take this live Tuesday next week at 11 a.m. like Pacific. Would you be open to that? And I've already built and poured in and showed it intentionality, and not just saying like, Sadie, can I have 30 minutes? Please click my calendar link. That doesn't work anymore. So Sadie says, oh, sure. Yeah, that's great, because we have a lot to talk about. And then that leads me into, hey, Sadie, great to chat. Thanks for joining me on Zoom or Google Meet, whatever y'all are using. Talk a little bit more about what we are talking about, give a little intro. Hey, we solved for the problems that we've been talking about. Can I give you a flyover? I give them a little appetizer about like what we do. And if there's intention there and there's alignment there, then I'll say, hey, I'd love to give you a deep dive, maybe pull in some other folks from your team or your boss or, people on your team and come check out our product. And then that creates a solid sales motion for me, where I put in the time and effort to understand Sadie and then understand her team and then show her what the flavor of our solution looks like. And if that's appetizing to her, she'll bite. And that's why I think my win rates are really high, is because I'm vetting while creating a relationship at the same time. And even if it doesn't work out, now me and Sadie are connected, and she knows that I took the time to learn her and ask her questions. So like, it's literally like an unlosable situation, right? So that's the way I find why I utilize it in like my day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, you touched on something a little bit too, that there's two different things, right? People talk about ICP or buyer personas or whatever your particular version of, our target audience is. There's also what I call triggers, right? Which is, if you've got this whole big audience that's your ICP, right? You could take 100 people that are exactly your ICP, like they're the kind of people that would buy my stuff. 98 of them might not have the particular like trigger to want to buy right now, right? There's a difference between like, oh, I experienced a given pain or a given problem, and I'm ready to pull out my wallet and solve it. And so sometimes it's about those triggers too, right? Do you know, with some of my clients, it's been like, do you know that they underwent a merger or acquisition lately where they're likely to have a particular problem and be willing to pay to solve it? Maybe they had someone new come in, right? A new CTO who maybe is going to be reevaluating what kind of technology they use. So I differentiate a little bit between like the pain points of like, yeah, you have the pain, but what's going to force you to actually solve it now is more of a trigger. And so I think it can be important, again, back to that research piece on LinkedIn of figuring out what people are doing. Incidentally, I think it's interesting that we connected with both Mobile Growth Association and with Roy on LinkedIn. Both of these relationships came out of LinkedIn, oddly enough. All right, let's see. Oh, I skipped a statistic. Sorry about that. 82% of people that consider LinkedIn their most valuable source of leads do add custom messages. I know, Roy, actually, I think you don't mostly add custom messages, but it's because it's more of a volume game for you, right?
Well, I look at it like this, right? You have to look at it into your own particular situation. Where like for me, I'm almost going to cross 21,000 followers. Like that's not a flex. This is just how I'm positioning this, where like when I connect with someone, odds are we're connected with 12, 30, 40, 50, hundreds of mutual connections. It's kind of a no-brainer that they're going to accept me. So that's a big part about building your brand and building your following, is that like when you have mutual connections, like I am connected with a lot of VP of TA and CHROs and things like that. So I don't ever really having a problem like connecting with like the CFO at Dell, right? Because like we do have a bunch of connections because of how I go out and build my network. So custom messaging works where like if I get a warm handoff or warm intro, I do add a message. I'll say, Sadie, Jen at Mobile Growth said that you run the employee referral program at WeConnect. Love to connect with you and understand more about what your day-to-day looks like. Send. So like it's a lever to pull for leverage. That's why I add the custom messaging, but don't go and message people. Hi, I see you're on LinkedIn, so am I. You breathe air, so do I. Let's be besties and buy my stuff. That's never going to work, right? They're already like spam filter, boom, you're done. So if you don't have anything good to say, just don't say anything at all, kind of like what your mama taught you type of thing. So like that's the way I would approach it. So if you have a piece of information that you can leverage to help bump up why you should start a relationship, use it. If you don't, then just go in blank.
All right. And then follow up too, right? Great. We connected. Then what comes next?
What's that, Sadie?
Roy, I was going to let you cover this one in terms of what happens next after you connect with someone.
Yeah. The audio's, a few people have said that audio is kind of cracky, so I didn't want to like derail you there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, once someone comes connected, that's what I just do is I either like look through their profile, visit their profile, engage with their content. And then when I feel like it's the right time, I'll ping them with just curiosity, like curious, like, you know, usually my lead phrase is like, who runs your employee referral program? Like, and that's my angle. But if I connect with someone who's not my ACP or they connect with me, I just go to the route of like, hi, Jen, thanks for the connect. Let me know if I can help you in any way, right? Like I'm opening up the door as like, here's the message on my doormat. Like I'm here to help and I'm here to be me and let me know if I can help you, right? And one huge thing I would use is like a method for anyone out there. Like if you're looking to sell someone, market, hire, whatever it is, when you run into someone that's like, hey, I got laid off, or hey, I'm open to work, this has paid me 1,000x dividends. I'll say, hey, Sadie, no worries. Let me know if there's anyone in my network that I can warm intro to help you find your next role. Like I am building so much credibility with that person that would essentially be my buyer by saying, I don't want anything from you. You're not in a position to do anything, but let me know how I can help you. I've had people circle back in 6 months ago, Roy, I'm on my feet. Thank you so much for helping me get connected with Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones, or even just thanks for the offer. Like, I'd love to hear your pitch. Like, let me see what your product looks like so we can see if we can roll it out at this org that I'm currently at. Like, you're building like a gratefulness vibe that people are going to look at you and be like, that guy or girl was willing to help me and I didn't even know them. And if you do that 10 times a month over years and years and years, you have a large amount of people that feel like, wow, like he wanted to give even though I had nothing to give back. Like, how can I help him? Right. And it's not a selfish thing. It's just, that's the way I would lead with it, because you want it to be authentic and real and not just like a transactional situation.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. By the way, most people that we surveyed, they follow up within 5 days. There were some who follow up within a day. Most waited a couple of days, say 3 to 5 is the most common, but also regular follow-up. Like, it is a little bit of a, a numbers game where you're kind of breaking down those walls and starting to build up a relationship, as Roy said, and investment first and ask later, I think is a great strategy. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about, and we actually got a couple of questions around this, and then we will get to questions pretty much right after this, so bear with me 1 second, is the way we kind of see it is that there's like a level 1, you're getting started, you're doing that manual outreach, you're getting your profile in line, right? You're going to hopefully start to get some results, and maybe that gets you to a place where you look at it and you go, oh, wow, it really is worth it to start to invest more, right? Whether for my organization or if you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur. You're getting a little bit more serious about it, you probably are going to want to upgrade to one of the paid premium plans, right? And I get that that's not a tiny investment, but it's not a huge investment either, right? You might be talking $80, $100 a month, kind of in those lines. And that allows you to make more connections, to scale your outreach a little bit. But really, obviously, we're biased. I'm not going to lie to you, but WeConnect is an amazing tool. And LinkedIn automation, frankly, again, I wish that I had known about it earlier in my career. If you really, really want to scale, you start to automate it, right? Do it authentically, do it decently. Don't just spam people with horrible, horrible sales messages like I get a whole lot of, please. But if you do those connections and you're then willing to invest that little bit more to really, really scale it, I get to talk to people like Roy all the time who are just knocking it out of the park on LinkedIn. And I truly had no idea that people were experiencing that level of leads and success. Frankly, I've worked with sales teams and SDR teams. And if any of you are on the phone now, I apologize that I didn't know that there was a tool to automate LinkedIn in the way that we probably should have been all along. So to those of you who ask, like, oh, do I need to have a sales navigator? Do I have to have a paid account? No, you don't have to have a paid account. Hopefully you'll prove value before you decide to invest in a paid account, right? But that said, the people that we see that are having the best luck, they do have a paid account. And they also use a tool like LinkedIn or like WeConnect to automate some of their outreach to really kind of start to scale and get your results to just be consistent week over week over week.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to pop through these. By the way, if you are ready to try out a tool like WeConnect for LinkedIn automation, we're doing an extended 30-day trial if you sign up from the webinar. So please feel free to take advantage of that. We'll send you, again, the content later. And I'm going to do one from Mobile Growth Association as well. They're pretty awesome and helps you connect with your peers as well as access some educational webinars and hopefully a few more from us. But I want to get to questions because there have been a ton. One of the things that we've been talking about at WeConnect is doing like an open Q&A session with some of our experts where you just come and you ask questions. And I will tell you the 50 some odd questions we've had already today tell me that that is desperately needed, Roy. So we might have to sign you up for that one. All right. Do you have a place you want to start, or you just want me to start reading them off, Roy?
Yeah, you can just start reading them off and we can just shoot them down as they come. There's a bunch in here. I've been trying to fledge as many as I can and multitask. That's what having 4 kids will turn your brain into. You're just juggling 19 balls and crying at the same time. But anyways, I can totally fledge them as they go. If you want to just shoot them off, we can do that, or I can try to do them via text. I also just put in my LinkedIn link. If you want to connect with me, go for it. Like if you have a question, I'm going to respond. I live in my inbox and I feel like everyone deserves a response. Like even salespeople, they say no, someone says no. I'm like, thank you so much for the message. Like we get ghosted a lot and like, I'm just asking a question. So thanks for being a human being. Let's move on. But yeah, shoot them out and I can do them verbally or we can do them via text, whatever works.
Yeah, let's run through a few verbally while we've got some time. And then, by the way, if we have not responded to you verbally or in the chat, we will follow up via email after the fact. All right. One of my main challenges is running out of connections early in the week, which limits my consistency of lead flow. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so I would say the typical response, be more targeted, but like there's a large pond of ICP out there, right? So like I always used to run out to, and again, Sadie, it's hard to not make it sound like this, but like, this is a metric I found with WeConnect. I was sending 90 to 110 not automated, 90 to 110 manual connection requests per week via Sales Nav as I go through my ICP list. When I switch to WeConnect, I'm able to send 130 to 150 now. So I don't know what voodoo magic y'all are doing over there, Sadie, but like for me on a weekly basis, if it's even 20 a week, and that's another 50 weeks a year, let's say, that I'm being active on there, that blows my mind of the amount of extra connections to acceptances to conversations I'm going to have. So, and it's to the point you said about, do you need a premium? Do you need a sales nav? Do you need WeConnect? All this. This is the way I pitch it to anybody. Find out what works, do it, scale it, and then try to find how you can be smarter to do it. So I worked backwards. I got to a point where I'm spending 12 to 14 hours a week responding to messages, doing follow-ups, connecting, going through my ICP list. And then I put in WeConnect. That saves me probably 8 hours a week now. So like follow-up messages, I can build out sequences, build out lists. I'm just even experimenting now, Sadie, with like network lists of first connections and not just creating external lists that I'm creating new relationships, but I'm nurturing current ones. So like there's a lot there, but like, yeah, that's what I would recommend in that sense is like, be more targeted, be specific. But if you run out, that's just the game. But like WeConnect is giving me an extra like 20, 30% of connection requests. I don't know why or algorithmically how it's set up, but it's been able to give me like a couple extra dozen, I would say, on top of my norm.
Yep. And I think, by the way, I suspect this may be someone who's already using automation, but whether you are or not, I think for sales people, especially, it's really hard to go, oh, like, I want to serve everybody that possibly could buy my solution. And I joke that it's like the ICP versus the ICA, which is like, I accept everybody. ICP is like, who is your ideal, your absolute best case scenario? Make sure that you're, using those connections on that best case scenario. And then anything left over, maybe use it to broaden out, right? To Roy's point, just narrow the heck out of your target. Let's see. My target market is CFOs of companies between 50 and 500 employees. Any tips on an engagement question? Like, what is the hook?
The hook is just be curious. Just have a question. Like if someone came to me and said, Roy, I'm going to automate my email outreach and connect with people and pitch slap them with 5-paragraph sales campaigns, I would say, stay right there. I'm calling the cops. You should not be doing that, right? So like be intentional in the sense of like, know who your buyer is and why they would care and where they land on the hierarchy of the pain that you're looking to solve. So like, I'm not going to go to a Google TA manager, talent acquisition manager, and say, hey, I'm going to do all this for your P&L, right? Your profit and loss statement. They're like, I have nothing to do with that, right? But a CHRO really, really cares about that. So I would say create messaging on your pain and understand at what level within the organization, what do they care about in the step of your solution, right? Like for me, automating employee referral programs, talent acquisition managers, they're doing this manually. So I'm like, hey, I can automate all the admin process for you. If you can do that, I'll give you my third child, right? Like done. And then the next step up is like, hey, I can get you more employee referrals that are longer tenure, faster fill, and cheaper hires. Wow, if you can do that, I'll give you my second child. And I'm like, look, I already have 4 kids. I don't need more. And then as you work your way up, they care about more things and different things, understanding the business and then the lines of business of like the hierarchy of like managers, directors, VPs, C-suites, and fine tune your messaging to those lists specifically. That's how WeConnect has been helped me from like copying and pasting 15 different messages to 15 different people to like aligning those and siloing, like this is what these people care about. And I'm communicating X and then Y and then Z and then A and B and C basically. So that's how I break it down.
So this question is really interesting. I was previously given advice that was connect with people who fit your target audience. They'll see your content eventually and then they'll message you. Seems like decent advice, right? So far, I'm getting 200,000 impressions a month and a ton of likes and comments, but most of the engagement is from low-tier countries. I'm really not getting quality leads. What would you advise for a more proactive approach?
Then I would just be proactive, right? Like this is what I look at LinkedIn. Like you pour in, you get back. So like your ICP, like the people you're connecting with, you're like, sweet, Mrs. Jones, my buyer at Microsoft connected with me. She's going to love my content, be blown away. and then connect with me and buy my stuff. If that doesn't end up happening, that happens for me like 10% of the time. And my content is not great, right? But it's just funny. So anyways, the other 90% of the time, I'm engaging with them first, and then they start to trickle back and engage with me back. And then once there's like almost like an engagement banter or ping pong happening, then I go in for the ask. Then I'll message her directly and say, hey, thanks so much for liking that video on X or that post or that meme, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you're a parent and you get it or whatever my reference is. Like, I had a quick question for you, and then they're ready to give back. So like that does work. And I've seen people that are big impressions, millions of impressions, run their whole business. Like I post, people like, they message me, wow, that video was awesome. I'd love to learn more about X. And that's good for them. But like a lot of us just aren't there yet. So I would be proactive back. Like look at it as I'm going to connect with Sadie to engage in her content so that she engages with mine, so that we create a small level relationship where I can ask her a question or message her and she's going to give me the time of day. That's worth the investment.
Yeah, there's an interesting question. I think you answered this one a little bit, but I want a more specific answer. Somebody asked, hey, is it really that I need like a really compelling sequence of emails? By the way, I get these all the time. And even when they're relatively decent, I just sort of cringe because like I don't really want to be targeted aggressively on LinkedIn, I guess. Or is it that I should be going for a much more conversational approach?
Yeah, so I have found in my time, like I came from like a non-traditional background of not corporate America. So when I came into corporate America, I was like, I must be very formal and use lots of commas and like use Grammarly and all this stuff, right? But like now I'm like, I just type like I speak and it resonates with people. Like there's a company, Lavender, who does emails, and they pick and choose emails and tell you what's best. And they have this series with this guy, Lavender Joe, and he sits on a bench and he talks to people and he's like, hey, Sadie, hope you're well. I wonder if you'd be curious to open her a 15-minute. And I'm like, you see it in a human to human context and you're like, this makes me want to yak. Like, this is so disturbing. I don't know how to process this. So just be conversational. Like I will go in and just not even barely, sometimes I won't even say their name. I'll just be like enough of a banter between me and Sadie that I'm like, curious who runs your employee referral program. I'm like, hey, Sadie, thanks for liking my post. Like, I had a question that's been, rattling around in my brain, blah, there it is. And it just starts at light. And then you kind of just can do look at LinkedIn messaging as like texting. You can do ping pongs. You don't have to say, here's my 5-paragraph message that doesn't even fit on your giant screen on your computer. So let's put it into LinkedIn messaging on your cell phone. The worst approach you can do. So just send one-line questions and just kind of get like a ping pong going and keep it conversationally. And then you can evolve that text conversation via LinkedIn to a verbal conversation via Zoom or Google Meet or WebEx or whatever you're using. And that's kind of like the evolution of like the relationship you're trying to build. Just keep it like in every day-to-day context. That's what I recommend.
Yep, totally agree. Let's see. Oh gosh, so many still. And again, we will answer via email, as I know, I think we're gonna have to hop here in about 5 minutes. What's your best advice for salespeople when prospects agree to take a meeting, but then never respond after that?
Usually I'll have a follow-up, but then some of my follow-up will be humorous and it gets a prompt, or if you can get an emotional spike, they usually will respond, right? So Sadie, me and you meet, and then Tuesday, 5 minutes out, you're like, well, I have to reschedule. I have to go get my kid from school. Yeah, totally cool. Set up for next Tuesday. And then you no-show me. And I'll say, Sadie, hope your kid's okay. So you either got really busy, forgot about our meeting, or you got kidnapped by aliens. Either way, like, I hope you're okay, but like, get back to me. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is, just prompt something where like too many people are getting like these very formal responses to like, hey, I was trying to just have a fresh conversation with you about, learning you and you learning me and my product and seeing if there's alignment, and you can't go so formal. So like, I find that like 5 minutes into a meeting that I have booked, if no one shows, I just email them, everything okay, ? And I'm like, I'm not saying, why aren't you at our meeting? I'm just saying like, hey, is everything cool? Like, are you all right? And then I'm keeping it on a personal level. And then 80% of the time it'll be like, so sorry, like ran out of gas, my kid threw up at school, whatever it is. And I'm like, look, I get it. I signed up for this life too. I live here as well on Earth. So like totally cool. Let me know what works for you. And then if they don't respond, what I find that works is I'll just push that same meeting, same time, 2 weeks out as like a last check and be like, hey, Sadie, I'm sure you're still busy handling whatever village fires you got going on in the Peterson house, but like I sent you a time that works for 2 weeks ahead, and the same time that doesn't work, we can totally reschedule. But then that's pretty much it for me. So I'll do like everything okay. And then if I get no response, I'll push the meeting out 2 weeks as like a final like Hail Mary. And if it doesn't work out, then I just cut it and move on. You know, it's not worth the badgering people. You know, you don't know what's going on in their life, basically.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Is there ever a case where InMail is more effective than a connection to positioning to messaging sequence?
Yes. So like I said, I'll send, 130 to 150 a week, get 50% connection rate. Then from those folks, I'll get a 40% response rate to my general curious question. InMailing, I use as a sniper scoped approach to my direct buyer. So like a VP of TA for me is who I InMail directly. I'm very blunt and concise on what we do. Like Sadie, you kind of had it on one of your other slides, but essentially like I'll be curious with like creating relationships, but hey, I mean, cold email still works. Cold calling still works. I just think that LinkedIn's a better lever. Direct emailing, I will go direct to my main buyer and champion and say something simple like, Sadie, as a sales leader, I assume employee referrals are top of mind. Like lower cost, faster fill, longer tenured hires. Problem is teams only see 10% of hires from employee referral programs, and it's a manual lift. We did X for these 3 orgs and tripled their referral hires, and we automated the process. Like, you think Aaron can help? And it's like, that sounded a lot out of my mouth, but it's only about this long, and it's like 4 lines, and I do direct InMailing. Like, I'm assuming a problem in my buyer's eyes from what I've seen as closed won in our business. And that resonates about 1 out of 60. And that's full cold. We're not connected. There's no conversation. And, you can send 800 InMails a month. So my method is I'm getting about 1 or 2 meetings at an enterprise level via WeConnect and messaging and the whole bit, a lot of pipeline, and then about 1 a week from InMailing, right? So like I'm an enterprise full cycle rep, and if you're booking 10 to 12 meetings a month, like you have some job security. Let me just tell you that. So like that's kind of where I look at it, as like I'm going to self-source my own pipe and I'm going to run those cycles, and then you become a full Terminator machine. So like InMailing, just be blunt and concise. Don't be curious. They're not going to respond back to a blank email like, hello, Sadie, who runs your employee referral program? You have 1 chance to pique their interest. So hit them hard, be impactful, be concise. And it works as well, just like cold calling, just like cold emailing, just the whole bit. Just doesn't work as well as connecting, messaging, and creating relationships.
Awesome. And I'm going to take one question that actually I think came from me, because everybody, of course, wants your expertise, Roy. And then I think we're going to close it down and probably schedule some more sessions. But do you think fear marketing is effective on LinkedIn? And I think it's a fair question. By the way, I just saw one that was like, either you'll pay for this service up front or you'll pay for it afterwards because you'll regret it. And it was just like the worst example of fear based messaging, right? And I think educating is totally valid. Fear-based marketing, I don't do as much. Did I early in my career in the security space? Absolutely. But I think just real, right? Like connecting, authentically understanding what people's struggles probably are. Absolutely. Blind fear-mongering? Absolutely not. So it's a line, right? Like, do you really understand your market well enough? Do you understand what they're really, really struggling with, and not just at a surface level, but like at a click down level? Then yeah, absolutely. If it's authentic and you really have empathy for them, that's about connecting with your audience, being in their shoes, walking, a mile in their shoes, whatever the cheesy lines are. But straight out like fear marketing, no, I don't typically try and do that because I'm trying to solve problems, not create problems, right? All right. That said, I think we should call it, Roy. I do think we will be following up for this group, especially with a Q&A session, hopefully being scheduled soon.
Yeah.
Because I do think that kind of the open Ask the Expert approach would go really, really well, given the number of, I think we're at almost 80 questions that have been submitted at this point. So if we didn't get to your question, I apologize. We will follow up with you via email. Other than that, thank you so much for spending some time with us talking about LinkedIn. I hope we've given you some ideas on how to up-level your LinkedIn outreach. And I would be remiss if I didn't say come try WeConnect, because I think it's a pretty awesome tool. And thank you for joining us today. Have a good one, everyone.
Oh, yeah, the next one.